Keanu Reeves didn't sell his soul to Hollywood, and for a while it kinda seemed like they punished him for it. No scandals, no clout chasing, and no messy headlines. Just a guy who kept to himself and carried a lot of grief. And that's when he kinda started to disappear from the spotlight. So how did the nicest guy in Hollywood go from action hero to almost invisible, only to come back as a legend? And why did the industry try to push him out in the first place? Maybe it's because Keanu didn't just survive Hollywood. Maybe it's because he exposed how fake it really is. To get it, you've gotta go back to the start. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, he didn't network for clout or try to craft some perfect image. He just wanted to act. But in an industry obsessed with control, that kind of independence doesn't just make you an outsider, it makes you a threat. Keanu's big breakout was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a weird, funny time travel movie that was a huge hit for 1989. It quite literally made him famous overnight, but it also locked him in a certain image. The charming, spaced out, lovable guy. Then came Point Break and Speed, and those changed everything. He proved he could do serious roles, carry big movies, and show up with real presence. But even with all that, critics weren't completely sold, saying he had stiff monotone, along with much more. But the audience didn't care. He showed up and he made his money. Still, Hollywood didn't fully know where he fit. Then came Speed 2, an opportunity of a lifetime. A guaranteed franchise, and Keanu said no. Not because of ego, not because of money, he just simply didn't like the script. Instead of chasing a blockbuster, he went off to perform Hamlet on stage in Canada. Yeah, Shakespeare instead of a yacht explosion movie. And a lot of studios thought that was confusing, because it sent a message. Keanu wasn't chasing the spotlight, and that's not how you play the game. Then from there, it came the personal losses. In 1993, River Phoenix, one of Keanu's closest friends, passed from overdose. They were like brothers, it hit hard. Then in 1999, only a couple years later, Keanu and Jennifer lost their daughter to stillbirth. And then less than 2 years later, Jennifer passed in a car crash. Around the same time, his sister was dealing with leukemia, and Keanu basically pressed pause on his whole career to take care of her. What a brother. He didn't talk about it, no interviews, no sad press tour, nothing. He just kind of disappeared for a little bit and did what he had to do. He even started a cancer foundation and named it after himself during the time he was away. He didn't promote it, he just funded it and kept going. And if that wasn't selfless as is, listen to this. When The Matrix blew up, he gave up half of his earnings, like millions, so the crew could get paid more. Because to him, they were just as important as anyone else on the set. But unfortunately, that's not the humility Hollywood knows how to market. They like pain, but only when it's loud. And Keanu, he kept everything quiet and stayed to himself. So of course, over time, roles started to dry up, and things were starting to get pretty bad for Keanu. Keanu Reeves wasn't just quietly pushed out, he was blacklisted. After turning down Speed 2, 20th Century Fox blacklisted him. Keanu later called it movie jail, and it lasted for a decade. Studios didn't like that he passed on a franchise. Not because he was difficult, but because he didn't do what they expected. He wasn't chasing attention, he wasn't chasing franchises, and he wasn't money hungry. And in a business built on control, that kind of independence gets punished. The buzz faded, the offers slowed, and even though he kept acting, a lot of people didn't notice. In fact, it kind of seemed to get worse for him. Specifically when he took on the role in The Watcher, where he played a serial killer and critics hated it and audience didn't show up. Basically, if Keanu wasn't doing cut, clean action hero stuff, Hollywood didn't care. Neither did anybody else, it seemed. He was evolving, but the industry didn't want him to. It wasn't until 2008, nearly 10 years later, that Fox finally brought him back for the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. But when somebody goes quiet for that long, people start to wonder why. And then boom, sad Keanu broke the internet. A random photo of him eating a sandwich alone on the bench went extremely viral. But it wasn't in a mean way, but in this weird empathetic way. People saw it and were like, man, that is so real. Then the story started surfacing. He gave up his seat on the subway, secretly donated to millions of hospitals, he helped a stranded airline passenger get home, and bought his whole Matrix stunt team Harley Davidsons. And none of this was for show. No PR campaign, no TikTok moment, just kindness. Suddenly, this quiet, overlooked guy became something else entirely. Not a meme, not a comeback, but a legend. Shortly after all that happened, then came John Wick, a mid-budget movie about a man who's lost everything and fights back with brutal precision. Nobody expected it to change the trajectory of his career, but it did. Keanu trained like this was his first movie, did his own stunts, hit every beat, but it wasn't just the action that made it connect, it was the emotion. You could feel the grief in his performance. It didn't feel like acting, it felt real. He didn't have to reinvent himself to fit the role. Turns out, he just needed a role that let him show up as himself. Even now, Keanu doesn't even act like a celebrity. He rides to set on a motorcycle, wears the same clothes for years, and treats everyone from the director to the intern the same exact way. He's spiritual, believes in karma, energy, and the afterlife. Not in a trendy way, just in a Keanu way. He never branded himself, he never tried to go viral. And maybe that's exactly why he did. Because in a world obsessed with image, he became the most beloved person in Hollywood without even selling one. So no, Keanu Reeves didn't disappear because he wasn't good enough. He disappeared because he chose to be real. And real doesn't always sell, especially in Hollywood. He didn't cash in on his grief, didn't build a brand off his kindness, and somehow the quietest guy in the room became the one that everybody wanted to listen to. Not because Hollywood handed it to him, but because in refusing to play the game, he proved just how fake the game really is.